That's Jupiter, right by the full snow moon this Friday morning. Dan Earhart with the rest of the news for 11/11/11. Veterans Day, but it's hard to tell from the morning press or regular radio. Everything begins in mysticism and ends in politics. It's a federal holiday observed by only 21% of American businesses. It's interesting. It began as Armistice Day in 1919, proclaimed by President Woodrow Wilson to commemorate our losses of the Great War, World War I. How great was it? 117,000 American troops died on the killing floor of France during the first 6 months of 1914. The objective was to block the Germans from reaching Paris. About a fifth of the American soldiers were not native-born, but immigrants who returned to fight and die on the 11th day of the 11th month in 1918. Remains of the dead are still unearthed occasionally in France. Dog tags rusted, so an identifying note was handwritten and placed in an empty wine bottle after presumably the contents were enjoyed over. That was preceded by 41 pilgrims anchored on board the Mayflower off the coast of Massachusetts, signing a compact calling for a body politic on 11/11/1620. Mark and Gabrielle Giffords are on this week's cover of People magazine. She says she'll run for re-election next year. Users of the iPhone 4S complained today that Apple's fix for battery life seems to only make the problem worse. Honda has 2 new concept cars with no steering wheels, replaced by joysticks. One of the cars is a compact electric vehicle. I guess we better remember that. CEV. Also, next year we can look forward to 12-12-12. Today, we remember the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of this 11th year. I hope it's good for all of us, thanking all who serve. This is Dan Earhart. The rest of the news.